Two guys say they will show the world Bigfoot's body today. The video, it's a little rough. They say they found the creature in North Georgia. They say it's 7 feet 7 inches, weighs more than 500 pounds.
We are all seeking escape, aren't we? A break from the everyday mundane life or a chance to reconnect with nature. For many of us, that means packing up the gear, gathering around a crackling fire, and letting the wilderness embrace us. But sometimes, the wild has something more to offer than peace. Something old and terrifying lurks just beyond the firelight. Something that shouldn't exist. This video plunges into 8 of the most disturbing Bigfoot encounters ever reported, sharing the raw experiences and actual videos of those who faced the unknown. We'll explore everything from guttural sounds to figures caught on cameras in southern forests. These aren't just stories. They're moments that will challenge everything you think you know about our world. Could these be just basic animal misidentifications, elaborate fakes, or do they point to something far more magnificent? The Finding Bigfoot team had an interesting question. Which ancient wilderness held more Sasquatch activity, Washington's Olympic Peninsula or British Columbia? Bobo and Rane, forming the U.S. team, dived into the Olympic Peninsula, a region famous for the very legends they were looking for, even giving rise to the name Sasquatch itself. As seasoned researchers, they moved with regard through these tribal lands.
Can't even see my hand in front of my face. Out here on the Olympic Peninsula, there is a rich history of reports, and there's no other place where I've spent more time in the woods than right here. So it would be very fitting if this is the place where I find a Bigfoot tonight. Plus, we have Monkey on our team. This wager is in the bag.
This intense darkness multiplied every sound, every distant rustle, sharpening their senses and preparing them for the unknown. Their initial search involved looking for animal tracks, quickly finding bear scat, a small reassurance of ordinary life. But as night fell, a different reality set in. The darkness on the Olympic Peninsula was not to be messed with, a thick, tangible blackness that Ranai described as the most absolute she had ever experienced, making it impossible to see her hand in front of her face. Despite the creepy quiet, Bobo felt a strong vibe that this was the night. Then, the forest whispered its first terrifying secret. Ranai heard a subtle movement in the brush, followed by a clear, sharp wood knock.
Well, I mean, besides, I heard something further back make a noise.
Yeah, bigger, right?
Like a vocal kind of noise. Like, there's something in there. Right there. Listen.
Bobo, do you hear that?
It was an unmistakable sound, a slow, calculated way of communication. Both instantly snapped to high alert, the playful quiet replaced by a tense expectation. They decided to respond with their own knocks and calls, pushing deeper, excited to explore the possibilities. Just as their intense efforts continued, the night's creepy silence was shattered by something far more unsettling than a Sasquatch. A loud generator roared to life directly below them, followed almost immediately by a powerful hunting spotlight that swept through the trees, eventually locking onto their exact position.
I'm thinking my throat's kind of throat. You want to do a duet whoop?
Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Echo.
Let's do one more.
1, 2, 3.
Oh,
This was too lice. Is that
he's gonna come up here. He's right there.
Bobo's mind directly went to the idea of hearing gunshots. The very real threat of human danger replaced the thrill of the hunt. Recognizing the situation, they made the sensible decision of going back, their Bigfoot search overpowered by the urgent need for safety. Their night on the Olympic Peninsula, though not very fruitful in a direct Sasquatch sighting, left them with a chilling and unforgettable encounter that proved the wilderness held its own terrifying, unexpected dangers. The latest adventure from Sasquatch Theory took viewers directly into the heart of the mystery, starting with compelling footage captured from a gifting basket. Something furry and clearly wary of the camera reached in, taking off with bread, apples, and cookies, while oddly leaving the bananas untouched, which gives us a bit of understanding of the creature.
But the idea is, when he comes up here, he's gonna look into the gift basket, and hopefully the camera will capture something. I really doubt it, but it's worth a shot, just because we can't sit back and not do anything and say, well, they're going to know what we're going to do. Because if that was the case, people wouldn't have eye sightings, people wouldn't catch these things screwing up.
This footage set the stage for the host's deeply personal journey, camping alone in the very area where he'd had past Bigfoot encounters. This wasn't for entertainment, but a years-in-the-making mental challenge, driven by a desire to truly understand these curious beings and share his raw experiences. His mission was to provide a rare, raw look into their world, observing how Sasquatch operated near human activity and moving beyond speculation to seek direct answers. He had been gifting in the area for weeks.
Alright, so I got the night vision on, and this is what it looks like without the IR flashlight. I don't want to aim it towards the fire because you don't want to aim an IR device into a bright light. There's my camp. Oh, there's a whippoorwill going off. Very cool.
Leaving offerings, and had noticed a surge in activity, including strange tree structures with triangles, arches, and woven saplings, which he understood as actual signs of their presence and even a form of communication. Setting up his hammock and tarp at the edge of the woodline, he explained why he chose this spot. Rather than diving into the deepest wilderness, he camped closer to civilization, believing these smart creatures, much like deer, would circle and observe before revealing themselves.
They'll let me know it, but at the same time, how do you know if something's a threat or if it's just them being Sasquatch? We don't. We just kind of take the risk.
As darkness fully encompassed the area, the sounds of the forest intensified with the chirping of crickets, the calls of distant coyotes and owls. Yet, an unexpected tension lay in these familiar sounds. This was a known Sasquatch area for him, a place where he'd personally seen them before, and being here alone at night for the first time since those encounters was a very huge step.
I'm not gonna lie, all the sounds of the forest is pretty intimidating, but I'm close to home, so I'm not that worried about it. But this is a Sasquatch area, and I know that for sure because I'd seen them like I told you guys, but it's nerving being in here, being in an area where you know you've seen Sasquatch.
He acknowledged the great risks, but spoke very peacefully, trusting that if they truly didn't want him there, they would certainly make their displeasure known. He relied on the subtle signs he'd learned to recognize: faint sounds of stick breaks, sounds that seemed like small birds or squirrels, but with no visible animal, indicating a cautious, intelligent creature merging smartly into the wild. As the night went on, activity around his campsite became more clear. He started hearing a subtle movement and distinct stick breaks, not just near his camp, but especially around the tree structures he had identified along the trail and around the gifting site.
Over where I showed you guys the structure, right down the trail, I'm hearing more stick breaks. And straight out in front of me, past the gifting site and the other structures, I'm hearing some stick breaks and movement. But I can't figure out what it is for sure.
He noted the local blue jays fussing, a common wilderness sign that animals were on the move, and suspected they were indirectly alerting the Sasquatch to his exact position. Earlier, he had even seen a black, upright shadow move through a nearby power line strip, followed by deer and coyotes, leaving him with a disturbing sense of being observed, perhaps even surrounded. Despite the creepy atmosphere and the weird feeling of being watched, he remained strong in his commitment, hoping his new gear would finally capture the definitive evidence he looked for. His determination to his goal was to document the reality of Bigfoot, even if it required to have deeply unsettling experiences alone in the dark. CJ Faison, joined by psychic medium Amber and Chris, went on to Purgatory Road in Delaware, a place known for both paranormal activity and, surprisingly, Bigfoot sightings. CJ, a self-proclaimed Bigfoot skeptic, was about to have his knowledge of Bigfoot challenged due to the incidents that were to follow. The night began with an immediate sense of strangeness. As Amber, the psychic, offered her initial readings of the road's energy, a strange, almost on-cue sound, like a fire alarm, started and abruptly stopped.
Hey, is there somebody out there?
Somebody comes running out of the woods right now.
Yep, I'm out.
Never seen my face on that fast. Can't see that.
So, to answer your question, yes, I have been in the woods, but not like deep in those woods.
Like a state park thing, or what is it?
Yeah, it's owned by the state, yeah.
It was a creepy start to the strangeness that would unfold. CJ also pointed out different tree formations, bent and curved in ways that were just not possible, hinting at something large and powerful being responsible for this. As they went deeper into the woods, the atmosphere grew heavier. Amber warned about a feeling of being dragged deeper, a sense of being lost. Then, the night took another strange turn. A fire truck, sirens blaring, suddenly appeared on the gloomy road, its crew asking if anyone had called 911.
Call 911?
They can't find who called 911.
You just said you didn't call 911, did you?
There's not houses like...
Anywhere near here.
No.
Dude, what?
What?
How come out here, though?
The
Like, it's a crazy night, right?
That is insane.
I'm speechless right now. I don't know what to think.
So they got a call. Did they ping it this way? We should have asked them.
I know.
Why else would they have been out here?
Kind of like in a
They're
hurry.
like looking for who called.
This was shocking, as there were no houses in the area, and the timing felt very weirdly coincidental, especially because of the full moon that night. The incident left them deeply shocked, questioning the reality of what in the world was going on. The most shocking event of the night was when they were making their way back. A large, dark, upright shadow figure, too big to be human, was seen moving urgently through the woods.
Okay. It's like really soft ground. I don't know if I'm walking in like a marsh area, and I don't know where.
CJ, despite his doubts, was left stunned, admitting it was either the darkest and largest shadow figure he'd ever seen, or indeed the myth, the legend, Bigfoot itself. The encounter was so intense that it drained his camera battery almost instantly, adding another layer of unexplainable shock. Throughout the night, they also encountered a weird, unidentifiable burnt smell, heard creepy whistles, and witnessed more of the strangely bent trees, reinforcing the idea that something extraordinary, possibly Bigfoot, was watching them from the shadows of this haunted forest. When the footage aired on the History Channel, it immediately set off all the critics and skeptics. What viewers saw was something straight out of a sci-fi thriller, a towering 8-foot creature covered in brown hair, locked inside what looked like a heavy-duty cage. Armed men stood nearby, tense but watchful. The only sound was the low hum of equipment, adding to the creepy quiet that hung over the scene. For some, the fact that it was being shown on a major network gave the footage instant credibility. Could it be? Had Bigfoot finally been caught? But not everyone bought it. Critics were quick to point out how controlled the whole thing looked. The lighting was perfect, the background too neat. It felt more like a movie set than a real discovery in the wild. Still, There was no denying the fact of what was in that cage. The creature stared straight into the camera, its eyes sharp and intelligent. Not wild, but aware yet also angry. That stare shook people. Was it just an actor in a costume? Or were we looking into the eyes of something ancient yet unknown? Then a man stepped forward to speak, breaking the silence. He explained that they planned to collect samples, hair, blood, whatever they could to analyze the creature's DNA.
Okay, this is it. We're gonna have to tranquilize the animal again so that I can safely go in and get some samples. I'll be taking blood, hair, and saliva so that we can compare to other sightings and establish a baseline genetic profile.
The goal was to finally answer the question, what exactly is Bigfoot? But the creature wasn't going down without a fight. It began thrashing violently against the bars of its cage, every movement filled with strength. It wasn't just angry, it was furious and completely unafraid. The men kept their distance, weapons ready, watching carefully. The air felt filled with tension, and then came the dart. A tranquilizer was fired, hitting the creature squarely. It shook, but kept fighting, unwilling to go down. Slowly, though, its body began to give in. The energy drained from its limbs, and finally it collapsed, unconscious. The team rushed inside the cage, wasting no time. They carefully took the samples they'd come for, working quickly around the enormous, slumped figure. The final shot lingered on the still body of the creature, surrounded by people with weapons, a legendary figure, brought down not by hunters, but by curiosity and cold science. And just like that, the debate exploded. Had we just witnessed history, or the best theatrics ever pulled off? For believers, it was the proof they'd been waiting for. For skeptics, it was just another well-produced mystery. But one thing was certain, no one could look away.
Hello, Steve. My name is James B. Myself and a good buddy watch your channel on YouTube and just listen to your stories pretty frequently, actually. It's what we do. It's what we put on before we go on a trip or a hunt. It gets us in the mindset.
James B. and his friend, seasoned outdoorsman, held a deep regard for the wilderness and a quiet belief in Sasquatch. They weren't seeking any type of interaction. Their approach was one of reverence. They left apples as offerings at their camp spots, a gesture of respect taught by James's indigenous friend, acknowledging if there was anyone watching and being thankful for passage through the woods. 4 weeks before, they set up camp on the southeast side of Comox Lake, Vancouver Island, a spot they knew well. As James set up the tent, his friend playfully skipped rocks across the frozen lake, creating a different, echoing sound. The day passed peacefully with gathering firewood, cooking, and soaking in the beautiful view. But as darkness fully enveloped them, and they sat by the peaceful glow of their campfire, the silence abruptly shattered.
After just be sitting mesmerized by the glow of the fire, we started hearing many loud whoops and howls. We both know the sounds of elk and wolves and all the lives around us. This was not only deep, but crossed with the sound of a vocal cord. It came from 3 points around us, varying from about 100 meters away to what sounded like 2 or 3 kilometers away in a triangular form of communication. The whoops grew in loudness and echoed down the mountain and over the small lake we were camping at.
Loud guttural whoops and howls erupted around them. These were not any familiar sounds of elk or wolves. They were deep and clearly vocal. The sounds came from 3 different points, varying in distance from 100 meters to several kilometers, forming a triangle of communication around them. The intensity of these calls grew, echoing down the mountain and across the small lake. already creeped out, they decided to try and sleep. Then, the true terror began. A rock was thrown onto the ice, directly mimicking the sound James's friend had made earlier that day. The difference was very visible. They were both now inside their tent. It was pitch black, and this sound was at least 10 times louder, a deliberate, powerful echo of their earlier actions.
Already by this point, we heard a rock thrown onto the ice, recreating the sound my buddy was making earlier in the day. The only difference now is we were both in the tent and it was dark and it was about 10 times louder. My buddy and I stayed up throughout the rest of the night. The vocal sounds would change in pitch, volume, and distance, sometimes 30 meters from the tent.
They remained awake for the rest of the night, as the vocalizations continued, changing in pitch, volume, and alarming proximity that sometimes as close as 30 meters from their tent. Long, curious hoots pierced the darkness, limiting their understanding of the forest. To this day, they admit they still haven't fully processed what passed that night. The next morning, their original plans to explore deeper into the mountains were swiftly abandoned. They packed up camp, eager to leave. As they finalized their preparations, James's friend, feeling a sense of safety because of the daylight, let out a loud bellow, attempting to mimic the sounds from the night. Their mistake was immediate and terrifying. About a kilometer away, a thunderous, shaking response came right back.
The next morning, instead of going further into the mountains as planned, we packed up camp. We were about to leave down the mountain. As we were packing up, my buddy let out a bellow, trying to recreate the sounds we heard earlier in the night. Feeling safe around the light of day, we were highly mistaken. About a kilometer away came a loud shaking response. There is no way to recreate this sound. It shakes the rock under your feet. After that, we sped up, cleaned up, left our apples, and left the mountain. We just wanted to share this experience with you because we believe that you truly understand and we think somebody should know.
It was a sound impossible to copy, a vibration so powerful it shook the very ground beneath their feet. After that definitive confirmation, they packed quickly, ensured their site was clean, left their offerings of apples, and rapidly departed the mountain. They shared their experience, confident that others would understand the raw terror they endured. In June 2018, Jen and Gina, also known as the She-Squatchers, headed out to a remote, swampy bog in Minnesota after hearing about a possible Bigfoot sighting. According to the witness, they'd seen something big and mysterious moving between two groups of trees deep in the wetlands. Knowing how risky it would be to hike through that kind of terrain, the two decided not to go in blindly. Instead, they found a safer spot nearby and set up with their night vision gear, hoping to spot something from a distance. For hours, they scanned the area through the darkness, eyes locked on the patch of woods where the sighting was reported.
The recording of the, Can you see it?
The bog was too tough to cross that night, but even from a distance, they stayed alert in hopes for any sign that the stories might be true. Just as Jen and Gina were about to pack up and call it a night, something strange and completely unexpected caught their eyes. Deep in the trees, just where the Bigfoot had supposedly been seen, lights started to flicker and move.
This is interesting.
Can you see it? Through there?
It's moving.
These weren't the kind of lights you'd mistake for flashlights or reflections. They shifted and darted, as if they had a mind of their own. The two women stared, stunned, then quickly turned their night vision camera back on and aimed it at the strange display. They managed to capture some of it on video, watching the lights float and pulse in ways that made no sense. Trying to make sense of it, Jen pulled up satellite images to check for roads or houses nearby, or anything that might explain what they were seeing. But there was nothing. No roads, no cabins.
Can't see any of them now. But I'm getting it on tape. Now it's toward the bottom. Can you see it?
No signs of human activity at all. Just marshland and trees. And then, just when they thought the night couldn't get weirder, it did. As they were getting ready to leave and turned off their night vision camera, the lights inside their car suddenly flickered on and off. Not once, but 3 times, on their own. There was no one touching the controls. The timing was creepy, and it left them shocked.
I can see one.
There was 2. It's moving through.
Wondering if it was somehow connected to the lights they had just seen in the bog. They couldn't say for sure what had happened, but one thing was crystal clear. The whole experience was deeply disturbing. Whatever was out there, it wasn't something they could explain, and it only added to the growing mystery surrounding the Minnesota Bigfoot. A crew member of the YouTube channel Sunny Vader went on a solitary 4-day and night exploration to a remote winter campsite deep within the Canadian Rockies. This wasn't just a camping trip. It was an investigation into unsettling events that had forced a local native band to abandon Spirit Camp, a sacred site once used for ceremonies. Some of the recently occurring disturbing instances, including alleged body tampering, strange vocalizations, and unconfirmed sightings, had made the area too spooky even for those who had lived there. The crew members' mission was to discover clues, spending days in the snow-capped landscape, observing strange drawings etched into trees, and looking at the prancing deer. He gathered wood to help build fires for warmth, going through both day and night in the isolated, freezing environment. His constant determination in the snow-covered paths, surrounded by the unsettling history of the site, set the stage for an unexplainable encounter with the unknown. As night fell over the silent, snow-covered terrain, the camper's senses were heightened by the extreme quiet and bitter cold. He was alone, fully immersed in an environment that had driven a native band away due to incidents that could not be understood. The crisp air carried every distant sound, and the stark white of the snow made every shadow appear massive. He maintained his camp, keeping the fire going for warmth and protection, while his recording equipment silently monitored the freezing surroundings. The isolation was intense, broken only by the natural sounds of the wild forest. Then, in the dead of night, the silence was destroyed. The camper was suddenly awakened by a strange sound coming from the darkness beyond his camp. It was unlike any animal sound he recognized, which was deep, guttural, and yet somehow appeared intelligent. The sound sliced through the cold air, raising the hair on the nape of his neck. This was exactly the kind of strange sounds that had been reported at Spirit Camp, one of the key reasons the local band had left the site. He lay still, listening intently as the chilling sound echoed across the frozen landscape. That moment confirmed everything he'd heard about Spirit Camp. The eerie stillness, the odd markings on trees he'd noticed earlier, the jittery deer, they'd all hinted at something just out of sight. But it was the sound that night, raw and impossible to explain, that truly shook him. After spending 4 long days and nights alone at what was once a sacred ceremonial burial ground, he was sure of one thing: something was still there. And maybe that's why some places, no matter how meaningful, are better left alone. Frank, a longtime camper in Sequoia National Park, had his first shocking experience with a gorilla-looking thing back in 1992 as a second grader, hiding from his cousin. He saw a large ape-like figure about 30 feet away, froze, then ran away screaming. However, his older cousin did not believe him. Years later, in 2002, while camping at Princess Campsite during a year of fire bans, he and his cousin Tony decided to set up a 2-person tent 100 feet from their main campsite, on the end of the deep forest. They heard the sound of branches breaking in the woods that night, but ignored it as other campers gathering firewood. Around 2 a.m., 2 hours after they had gone to sleep, Frank was woken up by the noise of 2 giant vibrating footsteps.
And that's when it all happened. 2 hours later, I was awakened by 2 giant vibrating footsteps. There were several steps I heard coming closer and closer. The way I described it, it was like Jurassic Park when you see the cup rippling. I felt that on my back. I slowly turned to my cousin and shook him awake and covered his mouth without making a noise. As soon as I woke him, it's like right away he felt that vibration to the walking.
The ground beneath him shook, a sensation he likened to the iconic Jurassic Park scene. He slowly shook Tony to wake him up, covering his mouth to stop him from making any sound. Tony immediately felt the same disturbing vibrations. Frank knew instantly this was not a bear. The creature was huge, its steps shaking the ground like it was an elephant walking. It seemed to be checking if anyone was awake, waiting for a sound. They kept silent. Or maybe it was the shock that had drained all their nerves as they covered each other's mouths. Then the unimaginable happened. 20 seconds later, Frank felt a blunt, round, warm object touch his foot, which was pressed against the tent wall.
20 seconds later, I felt a blunt, round, warm thing touching my foot. That was against the tent wall. I remember it was a small 2-person tent. I felt it go from the bottom of my foot and slowly upward. If it was a bear's nose, I think I would feel it breathing, or a side-to-side movement on my foot like a dog. But no. It touched my foot and went slowly up my foot until I couldn't handle the fear.
It moved slowly from the bottom of his foot to the rest of his body. He urgently ripped his foot back. In response, a low grunt, deep and guttural, sounded from outside the tent, like a huge, heavy creature rising from a sleep. He knew then that whatever it was, it could easily take down their tents. They heard it walk away, the vibration still present, but the sound of his step getting far. The next morning, fear stopped them from looking for tracks, but the memory of those vibrating footsteps and the touch on his foot did not go away that easy. Years later, after watching countless Bigfoot documentaries, Frank finally realized what he had encountered: a Sasquatch. He finally felt relief sharing his story from Sequoia Canyon, near the giant redwoods at Stony Creek and Princess campsites.
Then we heard it walk away from the tent, but not as loud as when it came up to the tent. Still felt the vibration, but could not hear the stomping like when it woke us up. The next morning, I didn't think to look for tracks or anything because I thought it was a bear, but something in the back of my head says no. I will never forget the footsteps coming towards me. Boom, 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 boom. Only watching your videos and show and documentary, I know that it was a Bigfoot I saw.
He also noted what appeared to be a fist engraved in a log nearby, and strangely bent trees, reinforcing his belief that these creatures were indeed up there, watching. He didn't go out there expecting this. Deep in the wilderness, surrounded by thick moss and towering trees, something unexpected crossed his path. From the Mountain Beast Mysteries channel, this was supposed to be just another expedition. But what he found out there, it changed everything. It all started with a footprint, a clear, bare, human-like footprint, right there in the moss. You could see it, the heel, the narrowing shape, the toes spread out just enough. It wasn't a perfect print, but it was enough to freeze him in place. It didn't look like a bear. It didn't look like anything he could easily explain. And if it really was Bigfoot, this would be his first track ever. See for yourself.
It looks like toes, I mean. If this is from a Bigfoot, it's the first track I've ever found. And it's a shame it's in the moss because it'd be nice to try and cast one.
The print sits right in the moss, deep enough to hold its shape. It looks like something walked barefoot through that area. The toes, the heel, the length, all there. It's hard to cast a print in moss, but there's no doubt it's an impression. This wasn't just a random dent. It's wide, long, and real. But it didn't stop there. Not long after, he spotted something strange. A heavy branch wedged between tree limbs, high off the ground. It wasn't something that fell naturally. The nearby trees didn't match the type of branch. It was out of place, almost like something had intentionally put it there. Maybe a marker, maybe a sign. Or maybe it was just the first clue that he wasn't alone. As night fell, the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. He stayed near camp, setting up trail cameras, ready for anything. But when it got dark, things got serious.
When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we were all startled to hear a loud crack and what sounded like a small tree falling over very close to our camp area, but just out of sight and a little ways into the trees. This set the tone for the rest of the expedition. We immediately grabbed the cameras and wandered off into the darkness in search of whatever caused this disturbance. Lesson learned? Always have your cameras rolling.
A loud crack, a small tree snapping nearby. It wasn't far. It was loud enough to make everyone stop. They scrambled to grab cameras, heading into the trees to figure out what caused the sound. They didn't see anything, but that sound, that crack, set the tone for the night. From then on, every step felt like something was watching. Later, while walking back to their vehicle, they found something no one expected. Take a look at this.
Yeah, we were walking up to the car here. I was just about to get some more stuff before we head out, and we noticed a few of these kind of strange-looking handprints, like up to my hand. You can see what would be the palm, or what looks like the palm, is a little bit lower. So it almost looks as though something maybe put a hand on here and then peered in.
Two strange handprints on the vehicle's side window. They weren't there when they arrived. They weren't from the crew. The handprints didn't line up with where anyone would naturally place their hands. The palms pressed lower, the fingers spread wide, and the print size was unusual. What stood out most, clear dermal ridges. That's a primate trait, not something you see from random animal marks. The group had no explanation. Could a juvenile Bigfoot have walked through their camp, peering into their vehicle? Or was it someone else? The prints didn't smear like you'd expect from rushed movement. They were deliberate, like something paused there. But the most convincing evidence came near the end of their trip. Another footprint appeared, even larger than the first. It was wide. The toes were fully splayed, and the pressure was real. Watch this clip closely.
Right here, we have another potential track. And I could just be imagining it, but what I kind of am visualizing is it coming to here and going around here. And it would be like the left foot coming. These would be where the toes are here.
A massive track pressed into the forest floor. Around 12.5 inches, the toes spread naturally, just like prints seen in other Sasquatch cases. The midsection was broad. The steps seemed natural, not staged or accidental. This wasn't the only track. Another impression nearby showed movement. Something big had been there, moving through that space. Throughout the trip, signs piled up. Strange sounds, tree markers, handprints, and those striking footprints. It wasn't a blurry shape or faraway noise. It was physical. It was close. It's the kind of evidence that makes you think. Could it really be Bigfoot? Was something out there watching them, moving through their camp when no one was looking? What do you think left those prints? Could Bigfoot have been right there all along? It started simple, just another trek through the dense woods. The forest was thick, old, and drenched from heavy rain. The explorer climbed down a ditch, cutting through the tangled brush, scanning for signs of activity. Alone, deep in the trees, the mood quickly shifted. A heavy grunt broke the silence, bow, followed by the sound of wood twisting. Not snapping, but twisting like something forcing the tree to break. Panic kicked in. He wasn't waiting to see what was out there. He turned and left the area fast. A few minutes later, a tall balsam tree caught his attention.
that's still alive because it still has like foliage on it. You can see there, it's a healthy tree by the looks of things, but it's been completely snapped off and pushed over recently. What's interesting right here, and we're pretty close to the road still, but you can see there's almost like a natural trail right through here. Kind of twists around a bit.
It was alive, still green, but something had snapped it recently. Nearby, a poplar, also freshly broken. Both trees were solid, no rot, no weakness. Something with serious strength had pushed them down. Between the fallen trunks, a wood trail cut through the forest, almost too perfect. Near that path, he spotted a deep, fresh depression in the soil. Maybe a footprint, maybe not. But it was strange. The rain came down harder. Water started pooling everywhere. Before heading back, he tried something. Wood knocks. See for yourself.
Might have to return again when it's more dry. Before I head back, I might as well just try a couple of wood knocks on this tree with a stick here, see if I get an answer.
He slammed a stick against a tree, pausing between knocks, listening carefully. The woods stayed silent, no answers. But the weight of the silence felt thick, like something was out there, just choosing not to respond. As he pushed deeper along the swollen river, he remembered a local elder's story. He had been told about a second pond nearby, a place where Sasquatch had been spotted. It wasn't easy terrain, thick brush, fallen trees, treacherous footing. He waded through the cold water, slipping across rotting logs. The deeper he went, the more isolated he became.
I heard a story from a local elder today who explained that this second pond I heard about from another community member here is along this river. I just keep following the river and I should find the lake and then the second pond where Sasquatches are known to congregate, according to both of these two community members. You can see there's all this water pooled from the river being so swollen, but now I can wade through this stuff.
The paths disappeared, the river was raging, and the woods closed in from every side. He climbed up slippery banks, surrounded by ancient forest. The river was too deep to cross, the current too strong, but the curiosity pushed him further. He tried imitating the Ohio howl. Here's the moment it happened.
I've never tried to imitate the Ohio howl or anything before, so I'm probably going to butcher it, but let's see if anything happens. And hopefully if they do hear me over the river, something will respond.
His call echoed through the trees. No immediate response, but tension filled the air. As he paused, a pelican suddenly shot up from the water, catching him completely off guard. The ground became even more dangerous. Every step risked a fall into the fast-moving river.
The footing is super treacherous here. Every step is a challenge. I don't want to fall into the river. Oh, almost did there. It's so thick here. Really hard to make any headway. Really hard to make any headway. Thought I heard something up there.
He kept moving carefully but heard something ahead. A sound from the bluff above. He couldn't see it, but something was there. The elder had mentioned this exact spot, a hill known for strange activity. He scanned the trees, feeling watched from the other side of the river. The bird calls came again, but they didn't sound right. Not like any bird he knew.
I just heard that weird bird call again. It was like a bird, but not quite like a bird. I've heard Bigfoots imitate other animals. I didn't have the camera rolling, of course, but even if I had, I'm not sure you would have heard it. It came from that way this time, kind of back the way I came. They were super quiet. I could barely hear it even with my ears over the noise of the river, but...
They were close, too quiet to fully catch on camera, but sharp enough to grab his attention. He kept hearing them from different spots as if something was circling him. His instincts screamed not to go further, but he pushed on. Watch this clip closely.
I still haven't moved from this spot, but I just heard some trees moving above my head up this bluff here. Sounded like something big, moving trees and foliage. There's been dead silence, apart from the river. As far as the woods themselves, dead silence this whole time, except for those two weird bird-like calls that didn't sound natural somehow.
He tried another howl. Moments later, trees shifted above him. Something big was moving. Heavy steps brushed through the foliage, just one set of movements, but they were deliberate. The river roared beside him, but the woods were otherwise dead silent. The crossing became impossible. The river was too deep, too strong. As he turned back, he caught it. A flash of movement high on the bluff. Quick, dark, gone in seconds. He switched on his headlamp, scanning the trees. Take a look at this.
Big and black. See, for all the skeptics who are always wondering why you don't have the camera rolling, it's because it happens in a second and then it's over and you don't know when it's coming. It's so frustrating. Yeah, there.
Something large moved again. It filled a gap between the trees, just for a moment. He couldn't say what it was, but it wasn't small. Rain started to fall. His phone battery dropped fast. As he left the area, another loud thud echoed from the direction he'd just come from. Like a tree crashing down, but distant. He pushed through the dark, glancing back, feeling like something was still watching. No clear sighting, no solid proof, just flashes, sounds, and a strong feeling he wasn't alone. What do you think was out there? If Sasquatch is a hoax, then it's the most persistent, anatomically accurate, and geographically inexplicable hoax in modern history. To date, thousands of footprint casts have been collected across North America and beyond. Many of them in extremely remote wilderness, where the odds of discovery are so low, it would make no sense for a prankster to go through the trouble. And yet people do find them. So what makes these footprints so convincing? It starts with repeated anatomical features, patterns not seen in human tracks, but found consistently in primate anatomy. One of the most significant indicators is the mid-tarsal break, a flexible joint in the middle of the foot common in great apes like gorillas and chimpanzees, but absent in modern humans. While our feet have an arched structure, these tracks suggest a flat, hinge-like flexibility that allows the foot to adapt to rough terrain. Some of the most compelling casts show human-like footprints, but at inhuman proportions. Prints measuring up to 18 inches long, showing dynamic toe movement, deep pressure ridges, and even asymmetrical steps, details that point to living, flexible feet, not hard molds. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a physical anthropologist and expert on primate locomotion, has spent years analyzing these tracks. His research points to traits that suggest weight shifting, terrain adaptation, and biological structure, including how the toes grip more firmly on sloped or slippery surfaces, but relax on flat ground. These are movements no wooden or rubber hoax foot could replicate. Some casts go further, showing dermal ridges, the fine skin lines found on fingers and the soles of our feet. These ridges are also present in gorillas, chimpanzees, and, apparently, in Sasquatch. They're incredibly difficult to fake. Police fingerprint expert Jimmy Chilcutt reviewed several casts and said, if someone faked these, they should be forging money instead. These aren't just broad shapes carved into foam. They show wear, weight distribution, and even injury. In some rare cases, researchers have tracked specific foot injuries, a warped heel, a toe deformation, only to find matching prints years later in the same region, showing the injury's progression and healing through natural callousing. A hoaxer would need not just deep anatomical knowledge, but foresight and access over years to pull that off. Dr. Grover Krantz, another renowned anthropologist, was blunt in his analysis. You can't fake pressure ridges. He was referring to the subtle compression patterns in the soil, signs that a real, soft, living foot pressed down, shifted weight, and moved forward with force. Of course, there are fakes out there, some of them laughable. Photos exist of crude wooden Sasquatch feet being held up proudly. But those obvious forgeries do not explain the best evidence collected under controlled circumstances by trained scientists in untouched wilderness. And this isn't just a North American phenomenon. In 1951, mountaineer Eric Shipton was scaling the Himalayas when he stumbled across a line of 13-inch humanoid tracks at over 19,000 feet above sea level. The photos made headlines around the world. The prints were deeply embedded in the snow, clearly fresh, and showed a broad foot with an offset big toe, a trait found in some non-human primates. Shipton was baffled. Nobody goes up to 19,000 feet just to make a joke, he said. And he was right. These weren't just oddities. They were structured, deliberate, biological footprints, appearing in terrain so inhospitable that faking them would be both impractical and senseless. This type of footprint evidence, when evaluated seriously, builds a consistent picture, not just of something big, but of something real, something adapted to survive, to move silently across rugged terrain, and to leave behind traces, even if only for those paying close enough attention. If a creature like Bigfoot exists, and it's as elusive as witnesses claim, then perhaps one of the best chances we have of detecting it isn't through sight, but through sound. Over the years, researchers have collected a remarkable range of audio recordings that defy easy explanation. These aren't distant echoes or wildlife calls misheard in the dark. These are clear, unsettling vocalizations recorded in remote wilderness areas, some of which have been analyzed by linguists, sound engineers, and skeptics alike, and still leave more questions than answers. Among the most famous are the Sierra Sounds, recorded in the 1970s by Ron Moorhead and Al Berry deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Armed with a microphone and a cassette recorder, the men were hoping for proof of movement. What they captured instead were bizarre, guttural voices, sometimes aggressive, sometimes conversational. The pitch variations, intensity, and speed were unlike anything native to the area, and far beyond what a human could fake without specialized equipment. Despite online jokes and casual claims that, "My dog sounds like that," or "My teenage son hoots like that all the time," serious analysts have taken a different view. Scott Nelson, a retired U.S. Navy cryptologic linguist, reviewed the Sierra Sounds and offered a chilling conclusion. The language elements in the Sierra Sounds appear to follow linguistic patterns, not random animal noise. He wasn't just guessing. Nelson, trained in identifying structured communication, believed the recordings captured a real language, spoken by something non-human. And the Sierra Sounds are just the beginning.
I played it over again. And over, and my son said, Dad, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? I said, son, there's a language here, and that is not a human being.
There's also the Ohio Howl, a now iconic recording made by an anonymous witness deep in the rural Midwest. Captured from what must have been hundreds of yards away, the howl is so loud, so haunting, that it triggers distant dogs to start barking in the background. The sound rises and falls like a siren, but sirens don't echo from the center of uninhabited forest. The howl builds, sustains, then drops back into silence, and listeners are left with chills. Researchers and independent explorers have since collected hundreds of vocal samples, including whoops, howls, growls, rapid chatter, and what sounds eerily like whispered dialogue. The patterns are consistent. The tone is always too low, too wide-ranging, or too fast for the average human vocal range. And they tend to come from regions with a history of Bigfoot sightings. If it's not a person, and not a known animal, then the question becomes much harder to dismiss. In many of these recordings, it's not just the sound that alarms researchers, it's the response. Nearby animals, dogs, elk, even coyotes, go silent, flee, or begin vocalizing as if they've heard something foreign, as if something larger than them has entered their territory. For skeptics, audio has often been dismissed as inconclusive. But for those who've spent time analyzing the frequencies, measuring the decibels, and comparing the patterns, this vocal evidence stands as one of the most compelling categories of Bigfoot research. Because it's hard to hoax something you can't see, and harder still to fake something that speaks back. Deep in the Northumbrian border country, something strange is happening. Sticks, snapped trees, unusual formations, stacked in ways nature can't easily explain. These aren't just fallen branches. They lean, they wedge, they point. It's like they've been placed. Take a look at this.
They all seem to come at the one point, don't they? Or roughly the same point. How they all seem to wedge more or less in the same place.
A tight cluster of angled sticks, all broken toward a center point. Different trees, different directions, but all aiming at the same spot. Could this be a shelter? It's not random. The alignment feels deliberate, almost like someone or something built it. Further along the trail, more of these break formations start to appear. Some old, weathered, snapped long ago. Others look fresh. It's quiet here. Too quiet. Every step feels like walking into a story already in progress. This footage says it all.
A little bit more of the debris. You've got the definite, heel area, which is quite low down. In this area here, it seems to...
On the forest floor, a large impression stands out. A clear trackway cutting through the undergrowth. There's a heel mark, wide and deep. It's not just a soft patch in the dirt. It's shaped. There's weight behind it, like something big crossed here. The trail keeps revealing more. Snapped limbs, heavy breaks, tall tree limbs cracked at impossible heights. Some of them way above human reach. A 9-foot break here, another one even higher. Could the wind do this? Could people? The higher you look, the stranger it gets. Watch this clip closely.
It's about another 2 or 3 foot above me. Now I would say it was about at least 9 foot. You've got break there, another one there.
Branches snapped and dangling, scattered like a breadcrumb trail through the woods. There's no saw marks, no sign of human work, just raw, torn wood. Multiple breaks across different types of trees, conifers, birches, some snapped low, some snapped near the top. The deeper the search goes, the more signs appear. 2 trees, bent unnaturally, arched over each other with nothing pinning them down. Another snapped branch carefully laid across them. It's like a marker, or a warning. Here's the moment it happened.
I mean, look at that, man. You've even got like a small tree there, which is dead. But you've also got this other branch, which has been snapped over.
More breaks, more toppled trees wedged in strange ways. In one spot, at least 10 breaks can be seen at once, all within a small area. Stacked, leaning, balanced, almost as if someone arranged them. It doesn't look accidental.
What could have caused those two trees to bend in an arc all the way around to there?
Even more curious, one branch hangs in midair, out of place, no clear tree it came from. Could it have been dragged, slide into place? It doesn't match anything nearby. It feels placed. Take a look at this.
In this channel here, this ditch, and what looks like a break. It's a branch stuck in the ground, but it's been snapped off at the top.
In the middle of a ditch, a snapped branch is jammed into the ground, standing upright. There's fresh signs of animal tracks nearby, and the area is clearly rich with food. A fox even makes an appearance, running the trail, pausing to check if it's being followed. This isn't just about tree breaks. It's about patterns. It's about the question no one can answer. Who or what is moving through these forests, leaving signs behind?
I think it was snapped somewhere else and just hanging 12 foot up.
Could this be the work of the elusive wild man, the one local legends have whispered about for centuries? The deeper you look, the more the forest speaks. Snaps, bends, tracks, and maybe, just maybe, it's not all in the imagination. What do you think? Coincidence? Or is something out there shaping the woods in its own way? It happened deep in northern Minnesota, close to the Canadian border. Rough, uninhabited land where winter locks everything away. An anonymous researcher, Jerry Trips, along with his professional guide, stumbled onto something remarkable, a 3-mile trackway, a continuous path of what appeared to be Sasquatch footprints. The prints were huge, 17 inches long, 6.5 inches wide. Every time the path approached a downed tree, the creature would veer towards it, stepping sideways along the trunk, as if it preferred walking on the trees. The tracks weren't random. They were in line, perfectly aligned, step after step, moving through territory far beyond human reach. Watch the struggle.
What it takes for me to get through here.
This is over my waist, and he's just stepping. I can't even make the step without dragging my feet.
Not even close.
Up and over, up and over, up and over.
There's what it takes a human to get through.
This wasn't a place people casually explored. It's a 5-mile by 5-mile bog, nearly impossible to access except in deep winter. The team had to cross 6 beaver dams and create their own land routes to get there. They saw tracks from all kinds of animals, but nothing like this, nothing that matched.
Up and over, up and over, up and over. In line, perfectly in line, every step.
This is the best.
For the humans, it was brutal. Up and over fallen logs, dragging their feet through waist-deep snow. But the Sasquatch trail? It moved effortlessly, floating over the same terrain, step after impossible step. The researcher followed the prints south for nearly 3 miles. The trail stopped in an open patch of snow. He suspected the creature had bedded down there as snow covered the rest of the path. Turning back, he followed the prints the other way. 2 more miles. At one point, the trail circled back on itself, then veered off again. What struck him most? Wherever it could, the creature chose to sidestep along downed trees. Always, watch the impossible stride.
Sideways, see this branch under here? Hope you can see it. Step sideways. Oh, look at this. So here's where I step. The next step, way up there.
One clip shows it clearly. A step onto a log, then the next step, impossibly far ahead. The gap? Over 6 feet. Even a 6'2" man couldn't stretch that far. The trail had no exit, no ending. It just vanished. Stride lengths varied, sometimes 15 inches, sometimes over 55 inches, depending on the terrain. Yet the pattern remained in line, almost perfectly straight.
I can't even, I'm 6'2", I can't even, look at this. Like, that's full stretch. And it was all the way up there.
Some tracks showed the big toe protruding slightly forward. Others displayed the mid-tarsal break, a distinct pressure ridge across the middle of the foot, consistent with other suspected Sasquatch prints. Review the detailed track.
Basically, you can see a slight right to left, but basically it's almost completely in line, and they vary from 15 to 30, 55.
These weren't isolated signs. The mid-tarsal break, the wide foot, the squared toes, they matched other known Bigfoot tracks, and the team had been here before. In 2009, after clearing a beaver dam, they had an intense night. Loud sounds, heavy movement. The next morning, they found a massive scat deposit on top of the rebuilt beaver dam, about the size of 5 soda cans. A sign left behind. Then in 2011, while snowmobiling across a remote frozen lake, they came across another trail. It ended at a steep, almost unclimbable hill. As they approached, they saw snow slide down, as if something had just climbed up. Determined, 2 of the men scaled the hill using climbing techniques. What they found at the top was shocking. Deer and moose carcasses stacked like bait. It looked like a trap. Animals would naturally follow the easiest path, straight to the bottleneck of the hill, where something could ambush them.
It piqued their interest. The next, last February, they were snowmobiling and they came across a large path that went across this remote lake.
One of the most unnerving encounters came later at a lakeside cabin, the only one on a 6-mile-long lake. That night, the team shined powerful lights up at the satellites overhead. After about an hour, one team member stepped off the dock toward the cabin. Suddenly, a large boulder, about the size of a basketball, crashed into the water between him and the others. Moments later, another rock hit. They searched with lights but saw nothing. Watch yourself.
One of the guys gets off and then moves over to the cabin, steps off the dock. And when he steps off the dock, a large boulder type rock, maybe the size of a basketball, gets hurled to the trees.
The rocks kept coming. Another one hurled over their heads, crashing nearby. They heard whoops, wood knocks, more rocks thrown, targeted, deliberate. The rocks they later found were too large for a person to throw any meaningful distance. This wasn't random. Someone or something was watching. Years of encounters, strange structures, massive footprints, tracks across frozen lakes, rocks thrown in the dead of night. It's all there for those willing to go deep enough. Facebook. Find Bigfoot shared this discovery. A record that still stands as one of the longest continuous Sasquatch trackways ever documented. If you've seen something, if you've followed strange tracks, drop your story below. The forest remembers, and something still walks these places. From the vibrating ground of a sequoia campsite to the eerie wood knocks in a Delaware forest, and from weird lights in a Minnesota bog to guttural sounds in the Canadian Rockies, these accounts create a vivid, disturbing picture of encounters that just cannot be explained. If you have ever caught something that you cannot explain, do share with us. Each and every story can help us get closer to the truth. Till then.